Hey everybody, it is Social Pros, the podcast for real people doing real work in social media. I am Jay Baer, founder of Convince and Convert, joined as always by my extraordinary co-host. He is my special Texas friend. He is the executive strategist at Salesforce Marketing Cloud. He is the one, the only Adam Brown. What is going on, my friend?
Jay, what an introduction, and great to see you today.
This
is something a little bit
video.
different. Yes.
Video, episode 1, season 9, year 9 of Social Pros on video. If you happen to be watching us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or somewhere else, welcome. Nice to see your faces. If you're listening to us the old-fashioned way on the podcast, welcome back. We love each and every one of you.
And what a great show to kind of start this new technology with, because this is a show really about emerging bleeding-edge technology of artificial intelligence from Pattern89.
Yeah, RJ Talyor, who founded Pattern89, is a CEO as well, is our guest this week. What an interesting startup company that helps brands optimize their social media ad spend by using, check this out, 2,500 different testing elements to give you a report that says, hey, you think this is a good image, it's not. You think this is a good headline, maybe it could be better. It is super valuable. Some of our clients have used it at Convince and Convert and seen boffo results. If you spend more than just a handful of bucks on social ads, you've got to listen to this episode.
And Jay, I think that's one of the interesting things about this. We are all hearing about artificial intelligence. It is a big thing, whether it's happening with Salesforce or Microsoft or Google. But what RJ has here is an amazing technology that does one thing very, very well, and that helps you optimize your paid social spend. And the way that he talks about it and approaches it with those 2,500 different parameters is really interesting. And I think it's something everybody should know in this space, because this is where we're going.
We certainly are going there. It's kind of a mind blower. You're going to like this one, friends. It's a great way to kick off the year. Another great way to kick off the year before we get into the show and bring RJ on is to acknowledge our sponsors, our friends at Salesforce Marketing Cloud. They're again back on the show, sponsoring this episode and this great podcast. Adam, thank you to you and the whole team at Salesforce for being such a great partner for a bunch of years now. We love you. As I've told you in the past, Salesforce Marketing Cloud has a terrific free guide on how to use social media the right way for B2B. Tells you how to figure out where to put your channels, what kind of content, how to spend your budget, how to measure social in B2B, which isn't as easy as I made it sound in the previous sentence. You can get this guide put together by the social media team at Salesforce for nothing, for free, and you can get it at bit.ly/social B2B guide. It's all lowercase. Don't put any capitals in there, mess it all up. Social B2B guide. That's where you can get it. And super fired up, we have a new sponsor on the show this year, Adam.
We do. And this is a sponsor that's near and dear to my heart. I'm good friends, full disclosure, with Andy Cernovitz, the founder of socialmedia.org. And it's an org that I remember way back when it was still called the Blog Council. Jay, do you remember that?
I do remember the Blog Council. It also sounds like a really terrible band name, but it was not. It was the precursor organization to socialmedia.org, which is an association of social media managers at big brands. In fact, a lot of the members, or many members of socialmedia.org, have been guests on this podcast, have been here on the Social Pros show. And so what we wanted to do was partner with socialmedia.org to make sure that all the social media listeners, all the Social Pros listeners, understand the organization. And if it makes sense for them, they think about joining.
Yeah, I was lucky to be a member, one of the charter members, when I led Social Coca-Cola and then at Dell. And the value of the organization is, one of the reasons that I'm currently probably not allowed in the rooms, and that is it's a vendor-free type of organization. Right. So what you're able to do is be able to have a relationship with the other people who do very much what you do in other organizations, but without any of the pressures of a vendor and the biases. You can talk about us. You can talk about vendors. You can talk about strategies with the confidence of knowing that this is an organization that is going to help your career personally, but also help you in the performance of your social media leadership.
Yeah, it's a heck of a group. If you are in a major brand and you are running social media, you absolutely positively need to consider joining socialmedia.org. Here's how you do it. Go to socialmedia.org/socialpros, special landing page just for our listeners and viewers. socialmedia.org/socialpros, and you're going to fill out a little questionnaire. Now, they're not going to take everybody. It's actually kind of tough to pass the screening process, but if you pass it, it will be the best decision you make for your career and for your company's social media. We can guarantee you that. Yeah.
I agree.
All right, friends. Without further ado, thank you to Salesforce. Thank you to socialmedia.org. Please enjoy this week's episode. Here comes RJ Talyor, CEO, co-founder of Pattern89. RJ Talyor, CEO and founder of Pattern89. Welcome to Social Pros. We are longtime friends, and I am so psyched to have you on the program. And what you're doing with Pattern89 is kind of crazy, actually. And I just, before we get into it, I just want you to describe basically for our listeners what it does, because when you hear about it the first time, like, wait, that's not actually possible, is it? Tell us the story.
Yeah, Pattern89 is an AI platform for paid social. And what we do is help marketers discover which of the 2,500 different dimensions about their paid social programs drives performance. So we look at everything from headline to body copy to imagery to call to action to audience and tell you what to do.
2,500 dimensions. That is,
wow.
That's crazy. That's what I say when you hear about this, you're like, well, wait a second, there's that many things that you could actually tweak and test. And there are. And I guess I'll ask you the obvious question first, RJ, which is many of our listeners, if you're part of this community at Social Pros, you're probably doing paid social. And if you're part of the Social Pros community, you're probably doing some level of testing and optimization of that paid social. We had a great guest on the show recently from Purple, Lisa Gammon, who has won Facebook's award for best monetization. She's doing some really interesting stuff. So a lot of our listeners, RJ, are sort of DIYing the testing process with their social ads. Pattern89 takes an artificial intelligence and a machine learning approach to that. Why would we use a tool like Pattern89 instead of what we have been doing, which is like, hey, here's 3 ads, let's see which one works?
Yeah, well, I mean, for a bunch of different reasons. One is because the machines help humans in a way that humans can't do. And even what you just described, a lot of marketers say like, yeah, we test stuff. We test three things every time. Well, what about all the things you're not testing? Or let's say you're testing those 3 options. Who decided on those 3? Probably a human decided on maybe like a man or a woman or a dog in the image or something. And it's actually,
I don't care what color it is as long as it's blue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's this funny thing. Like we think, oh, we're testing, but we're actually influencing the testing with our own, with our own biases. And so that's where the machines can really take those biases out and help us figure out what to do and what to test, and then make it almost infinitesimal rather than just testing 3, because that's what we can actually handle in a day.
Yeah.
So RJ, are we almost kind of going from, as you kind of articulated, A/B testing or AC testing to AZ testing, where we're testing thousands upon thousands of permutations? I can see the benefits of that, but I can also see the overwhelming nature of that. Does that mean that we have to create thousands and thousands of permutations, or is your technology assisting with that as well?
One of the things that we learned in the first iteration of Pattern89 is that a lot of marketers want to test, but by the time they get around to test, they can't spend a week or 2 days of that campaign lifecycle creating and launching the test. They don't, have the time, or isn't built into the program. They need the results right now. So what we've actually done is created a platform that surfaces what's worked best and what do we predict will work. So we'll show you we basically take away the need to do a lot of the testing, because we know the marketers want the results right now. Everybody says they want to test, but you got to build another week to run it to make sure it's statistically significant, let it run the weekend, et cetera. And that's, more and more time. And, we need the results right now. So we'll take all of the testing that you've done in the past and all of run our algorithms across everything that you've tried, as well as against all the other advertisers who have connected to Pattern89, to then show you what's going to work best, or the 3 things you should try and test. So we're not creating a whole bunch more work for you to try all these different things, but instead get into your normal workflow.
I think that's such an important point to reemphasize for our listeners. And I say this as somebody who's used Pattern89 and familiar with the tool. It's not about testing 900 photos. It's about the Pattern89 algorithm, which is powered by machine learning and artificial intelligence, saying you should test based on our analysis, you should test this bit of copy. You should test this CTA. You should test this kind of thing. So it almost serves up the recommended recipe more so than having to create all of those things. And the key to that, you just sort of touched on, RJ, is that you have a pool of data, and it gets smarter over time, because as more and more companies use Pattern89, their learnings go into the collective kind of shared insights pool, which then makes kind of everybody smarter in lockstep. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We'll show you the recipes or the creative formulas that drive the best performance and allow your brand and your humanness to come out in the brand. So it doesn't become so rigid. We'll tell you things like 72 character headlines work for this part of the audience or this specific goal, and content where videos are 15 seconds with 3 scene changes. The first frame should be a picture of a puppy. Those types of recipes come to you.
Always the picture of a puppy.
Always, sometimes a cat, Jay, sometimes a kitty.
Oh, good to know.
Especially if they're playing a piano. I tell you, the part of that, RJ, that really fascinates me is this idea of kind of group learning, and that this is not only taking and inhaling all the information from your own personal campaigns, but the campaigns of other Pattern89 users. How do you kind of compartmentalize that? And how do you say, listen, this is all the benefit of the group. The group kind of gets the benefit of these insights, but there are some things, for example, perhaps around my campaign or my program that I kind of want to keep to myself.
Yeah. So the way that we do that is by, first off, anonymizing everything within our advertiser data set. So there's no information that's shared outside of anonymized and aggregated data. And then we look first to the audience. So is it an audience of 18 to 35-year-old women or men? What are the things that are resonating for those audiences? And then we can segment it back by vertical or considered purchase versus a transactional purchase, or something that takes 18 months to decide on, like a new mattress or a bathtub or something, versus buying a new shirt or something. Also time frame, holiday, and then each step of the funnel. So nothing's exposed from proprietary secrets perspective, and we do that by anonymizing and then focusing specifically on that audience.
Where does this fit in the overall scheme of things? So we've got our creative department that's creating the ads. You've got your account service and media buying teams that are doing that. Perhaps you're working with an agency. Where does Pattern89 kind of come in terms of the process and methodology of creating campaigns, managing campaigns, et cetera?
Yeah, well, we come in 2 ways. About half of our customers are agencies, and half of them are direct-to-consumer brands who have brought that work in-house. Regardless of whether it's an agency or a brand, those conversations that sometimes are discussions or heated discussions or even arguments where the creative team says, hey, I think we should, and then the paid social folks say, hey, no, I think we should. We're right in the middle of those discussions, because we'll surface the data and the ideas that not only everybody agrees to work on, but we have the data underneath it to mitigate the arguments between the creative and the folks who are actually creating and launching the campaigns. And then on a day-to-day basis, our platform helps marketers who are managing paid social programs to optimize in about 5 to 15 minutes. We provide a to-do list through our console rather than them having to pull pivot tables and Excel spreadsheets and go get the analytics teams involved to do some heavy lifting. That all comes through on our console. So right in the center is really the answer, Adam. But whether it's the agency or the direct brand, we're pretty much in the same place.
RJ, what's the most surprising thing that you have found analyzing this data? Or maybe a different way of asking that question is, what do you consistently see advertisers over or underestimating?
Cool. Well, 2018 has been all about video, right? The rage is video.
Sure. Yep.
And so we've seen a lot of marketers devote a ton of time and money into creating just tons and tons of videos. And the surprising thing is that video doesn't work across all audiences, and it doesn't work across all levels of the funnel. So a lot of marketers we work with, or agencies, are like, no, that's not true. That doesn't work. And then we surface the data and say, here, for your audience, for your objective, images or GIFs actually work a lot better, and they're a lot cheaper for you to create. And you can, spin out a bunch of different versions of them in the same amount of money that you're spending on video. So that's been a big surprise in 2018. Now, video works super well for a lot of different segments and a lot of different goals. But like food videos, for example, like we've been doing a lot of analysis on food videos. Food videos killed it this year on both Facebook and Instagram. The top food video had spaghetti and meatballs in it. So kind of a surprising thing that I wouldn't have guessed, but food in general always performs really, really well. So had a return on ad spend that was 38 times the average. So video has been a lot of our discovery this year.
Well, you mentioned this year, and I want to have you elaborate on that. They say that you can never step in the same river twice, because once you've stepped in the river, you have altered it in some inexorable way. How much do you see now, or do you anticipate seeing the conclusions drawn by the Pattern89 algorithm changing as audience preferences change, as the people using different social media platforms continue to evolve? Like, I suspect there is no truth that will last forever, or even for very long in some cases.
Yeah. So, the old story I like to tell is when I worked at ExactTarget, we published a report on the best day to send email. And once that was published, then that was the worst day to send an email.
Because everybody said, Tuesday's it, baby. Only send on Tuesdays.
Yeah. So
remember
kept publishing it. It was like, then it was Wednesday, then it was Saturday, or whatever the case is. In the same way, but even faster, paid social changes on a daily or weekly basis. So our algorithm reruns every 24 hours, and the customers that we see the best results from are optimizing daily. And they're literally figuring out what works and what doesn't work for that day. So that's, talking about things in this year is probably a bad way of describing it, because it's like what worked last week or what worked last month. And I think that's the biggest challenge that social marketers have in the next year, which is how do we get into a lot more agile way of managing creative? So a lot of customers we're working with are planning.
If you have the conclusion, how do you do something about that conclusion?
Yeah, and quickly, right? So like a lot of marketers are like, well, here's our February or March plans, back in December. It's like, well, what if everything changed by then? What if there are new ad formats? What if video doesn't work as well, or those types of things? So it's how do we get in those rapid iteration cycles?
And I think to even take that one step further, one of the things I talk about with our customers are being able to certainly understand what content is performing better than others. But then you have the why. Why did that post perform better? To the example you used with email, was it because you posted on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday? Was it because we had a question mark in the post rather than no question mark? Was it because the hero shot was purple instead of blue? There's so many different kind of ways of looking at this. And it sounds as though your technology can get to that why, not only what everybody already knows, this is the top performing post, but dissect the why. And I would love to hear kind of more how you're able to do that and categorize and be able to say irrefutably, this post is better than others. It could be because of the AZ testing. It could be something else.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's exactly why our business exists, is to understand the why under the what. We know that the top, we work with a lot of e-commerce retailers, and top performers are running over 40,000 ads a year. So all the different
creative units.
Across your different creative units, to then discover the why on a rapid basis. We started out the call talking about the 2,500 different dimensions, and a lot of times people are like, "Whoa, that's way too many." But we actually are trying to discover the why within every ad. Why is this thing performing? Is it the hex code of the color that's in the background, for some reason that color of turquoise is really driving performance this week? Or is it the picture of 3 people smiling with a kid, or whatever the case is? So it really can be all of those different factors. And the way that we've gotten to the answer is by building this giant data advertiser set, where we can understand what's working about an individual ad, and then comparing it to all of those that have the similar characteristics, so that we have statistically significant about that specific item, so that you can have confidence in investing in it, rather than it just being a fluke or maybe this thing. So we're looking across all the ads that also have the color turquoise, or all the ads that have dogs, or all the other ads that have kittens playing piano or whatever the case is, to figure out that that's actually the element that's driving the best performance.
As I hear you talk about this, RJ, I harken back to my days at Dell, where we were doing a lot of SEO, SEM. It was our largest digital media expenditure. And very oftentimes we would be outbidding ourselves on SEO, SEM. And of course, Google at the time was very laissez-faire. They said, hey, if you want to outbid yourself, go right ahead. To what you're doing, I'm curious. Obviously, the advertisers, obviously the agencies love you because you're making their advertising more effective. But are the platforms, the Facebooks, the Instagrams of the world, a little hesitant about this because you're meaning that they don't have to buy as much advertising, or is because of this, they're actually buying the same amount, it's just being a heck of a lot more effective? Curious kind of what their perspective is on what you're doing.
Yeah. So we view ourselves as a content partner, and helping to enrich advertisers' content that in turn makes Facebook or Instagram or the individual platforms better. A lot of times customers are, they've allocated a certain amount of dollars to it. And if we can show that your dollars are even more effective on Facebook and Instagram, then you're going to continue to invest in those things that drive the best performance. So I'd hope that Facebook and Instagram view us as a strategic partner in terms of creating the content that drives the best performance, because the opposite could be true, that an advertiser runs something and it doesn't work, especially on new formats. And so then they abandon the format. Instead, with a newer format or a newer placement or algorithm change, will help marketers discover what works quickly, and then so they can invest their dollars in creative creating the creative and content that supports that specific objective, that specific format, etc.
Yeah, and assign blame too. The blame was the creative; it wasn't the platform.
Yep, exactly. I mean, certainly have the audiences and the reach. So we got to figure out how the content plugs into that formula.
RJ Talyor, CEO and founder of Pattern89, pattern89.com, is our guest this week on Social Pros. RJ, you mentioned Facebook and Instagram, and I know that the overwhelming majority of your data set in your program is on those platforms, Facebook and Instagram. Do you think that the lion's share of all dollars being spent in just two platforms, which is actually just one company, is from an advertiser standpoint a net positive or a net negative ultimately?
Well, I mean, from an advertiser's perspective, it's probably a net positive because it means there's less to manage. One of the surprising things that I hear from agencies and from brands is how much of a pain billing is. Just the fact that it's a single bill coming from one company makes a lot of sense. I know that advertisers are trying to figure out how to diversify dollars and figure out where the opportunities are, but keep coming back to Facebook and Instagram because that's where performance is and that's where they're seeing the conversion. So likely it's a net positive. That said, I know that advertisers are trying to figure out how to diversify their investments so they, don't get squeezed.
Speaking of investment, I wanted to ask you, when does Pattern89 make sense? So in what sort of budget level or what sort of circumstances does it become a no-brainer to use Pattern89 to improve your paid social? At what point are you either selling something that doesn't really work as well in your system, or you just aren't spending enough to yield the kind of return on ad spend improvements to make this all work?
Yeah, we typically look for two things. Customers who are spending more than $10,000 a month on paid social are perfect customers for us. But maybe even more than that is that customers who have the attitudinal, we ask them a few questions when we get started, like, are you willing to trust a machine? Are you willing to make changes to things that you have sort of tried and true to what you've done in the past? Those types of like attitudinal questions often show us a better chance of success because the platform is not gonna sugarcoat anything. It's gonna say this works better, and then a marketer is gonna have to decide whether they want to trust that for their brand or not. And sometimes they're vastly different from what they've done in the past, and habits are hard to break, so that's
especially because it's so fascinating you say that, especially because we're supposedly good at this. Like we're, you know what I mean? We're like marketers who have some training, either classroom training or certainly on the job training at being ostensibly better at this than just somebody randomly selected off the street. And now who's this robot to tell me that I don't know how to write a subject line, or, you know, whatever the circumstances are. I get it. Like, you're like, wait a second, that's my job. They took our jobs.
Yes.
And yeah, that's really fascinating that you say that you've got to like almost personality profile your customers to make sure they're not going to freak out and go off on their own, even when the algorithm says, no, you've got it all wrong.
Right.
Wow.
It's been I mean, as we profiled our most successful customers, it really is that. It's who's willing to not go with their gut, or to let their gut be challenged, or to balance their gut with the machine learning. And that's a big challenge. I mean, for me too, you know, like sometimes we see this data, I'm like, that can't be right. And then we go back and check it, and it is. And you think, okay, well, let's test, test and confirm. Trust but confirm, right? Trust and validate.
I do want to follow up on that, because I think it's an interesting idea. And for a second, RJ, I want you to take off your CEO and founder of Pattern89 badge for just 1 second, because I think you're right that us as marketers and as communicators, we think that we have an inherent skill and that we have something that perhaps the average person does not. We see where AI is going, and I'm probably leading the witness here a little bit, but we see that AI is now writing books. We see AI has, if you have a new DJI drone, can follow you around the room and shoot and make things look very nice. We've seen AI be able to edit content. Where is this all going? Are we going to get to the point where we are not necessary here, where we just tell AI kind of the technology, I mean, the product that we're selling and who our audience is, and say, good luck, we'll come back, set it and forget it. Here's your $100,000. Call us when you're done.
I believe that I believe in creativity as a human thing, and that optimizations that come from creativity, which ultimately comes from humans, are infinite, and that humans are the ones who are going to come up with new ideas and new memes and new ways to express ourselves, and new, I mean, like, that's the infinite well that's never going to dry up.
Humans came up with Pattern89.
That's right.
I mean, right? So it was like the robots, like, you know what we should do is create a startup to employ us as robots.
Yeah. So
chicken or the egg there.
Yeah. You know, so I really I have right now there's a lot of hype around like natural language generation, as well as this AI that can actually construct imagery or construct videos for us. But I think that photographers and illustrators and artists and marketers, who are artists in some way, are required to make these brands feel and talk and seem different, and that machines, if left to their own devices, will make us all sound the same. And that's where the human intervention with the machine learning platform is required. Otherwise, we're all going to sound the same. We're all going to look the same. These platforms are going to be super boring to look at, because everybody's going to be, in a red shirt with a dog and a bicycle and a mountain in the background. Like, it's going to have all the same attributes. Yeah. And because the brands represent different things, that's where the creativity, and that's what AI can't do. So, so I think that there is a just, giant opportunity for human creativity being augmented by AI.
It's a great balance of art and science.
Yeah. Yeah, because even if you say, look, you should have a puppy at the first shot of your video, there's a lot of different puppies out there.
You got it. Yeah.
And what's that puppy doing, right? Is it juggling? Because if it's juggling, I'm even more interested.
I'm going to click.
Yes, indeed. Right. You mentioned interventions, and RJ, you have had a series of interventions with a very interesting person, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, which is a fantastic Caribbean island. It is jungly there. They are known for their twin mountain peaks, the Pitons. I know this because I vacationed in St. Lucia 2 years ago. I had a terrific time. That is not a story that I have heard from you in the past. So please regale our listeners with the story of RJ Talyor, a friend to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to go so far as to say friend, but it's a funny story. My dad would take us on these vacations, family vacations, back when we were growing up, and he had my sisters. We were going to St. Lucia. My dad was a big scuba diver, and he'd have my sisters write to the foreign dignitary in advance of our visit in hopes of scoring some sort of exclusive experience. And
Genius. I love that angle.
I like
it's
that.
a pretty good scheme.
What am I doing? I got to put my kids to work. We go somewhere every summer. I feel like I've completely dropped the ball on this opportunity.
Roy Talyor is pretty smart on this. So he had my sisters, who I think were like 8 and 9 at the time, write pen pal letters to John Compton's kids. He has 5 kids. He had 5 kids. He's passed away now. They wrote back. And John Compton was a prime minister of St. Lucia, and we got invited to the prime minister's house. We had dinner with his family. It was, we have these awesome pictures back in the 80s with us, with their family. And then 20 years later, we went back to St. Lucia for another Christmas trip. And my dad spent about a day on the phone talking to all the, foreign dignitary offices or whatever, tracked down John Compton's assistant and said, hey, we had dinner with them back 20 years ago. We're coming back. We'd love to see if we could take John Compton out to dinner. And he said yes. So John Compton was a prime minister, lost power, and then came back to power. We went back out to dinner with John Compton, and it was such a, it was being, about 30 at the time. It was an amazing dinner. He was the godfather to Prince William. And we had this amazing dinner about like foreign politics and gun control and being part of the Commonwealth. And my dad is this my dad has been in sales his whole life, and he has this amazing ability just to ask, because all they can say is no.
Yeah.
And we've got these amazing pictures and cool story of, having dinner twice with the prime minister.
It's a good one.
That's incredible.
All they can say is no, and all the algorithm at Pattern89 can say is your creative sucks, among other things, or that it's great, which I'm sure happens on occasion. As a devotee of Pattern89 myself, folks, if you're doing paid social and you're spending 10 grand a month or more, as RJ said, which I know many, many, many of you are, thousands of you listening to my voice right now are, trust me, do yourself a favor, go to pattern89.com and check it out. Free trial is available, and it's pretty slick. You're going to be blown away. RJ, we're going to ask you the 2 questions we've asked every single guest here on the show as we enter now our 9th year, Adam. This is episode 1 of year 9 of Social Pros, which is crazy.
What's the anniversary gift after 9 years? Is it still like paper or?
No, it's actually, I looked it up. It's actually optimized social ads.
Oh, there you go. Well,
yeah, it's more of a modern gift. Yeah. I also noticed, Adam, that you have put your glasses on. Is that going to happen every show now at the 30-minute mark? You just decide to enhance your vision? That was an interesting move.
I think it's to try to enhance my overall appearance.
Okay, I got it. Actually. Yeah, now that we're doing this on video, for those of you out there who are watching on video, hello. It's nice to see you very much. All right,
I'll take them off and on with a flourish from this.
I like that. Yeah, with more of a I can do that too.
I can even do this.
Yeah. We can both do that. That's good.
Yeah.
We can both do that. All right, RJ. What one tip would you give somebody who's looking to become a social pro?
My tip would be to experiment more. I think everybody talks about it. Everyone talks about experimentation, but it's like the first thing to get cut. Brands that have sometimes they're called growth marketers, or sometimes their titles actually
hackers. Yeah,
experimentation manager, and they're killing it. And I think a lot of times, if we don't have that title, we don't feel like we have the permission to experiment or fail. And I don't know, ask if you can change your title or something, because that experimentation always nets results, and especially social, where things change so quickly, you have to. So just experiment more.
Fail forward.
Yeah, that's great. Last question, RJ Talyor, CEO, founder, Pattern89, pattern89.com. Optimize your social ads. If you could do a video call with any living person who is not the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, who would it be?
Well, so I just finished this book called Mayflower by Nathaniel Philbrick. He also wrote a book called In the Heart of the Sea. They're historical accounts of, just amazing historical accounts. This Mayflower book's all about the founding of America and their first few years here. I'd call him. I want to understand his research. So I'd call him right now just because I want to understand the book more.
I love it. Great
That's
answer.
a new one. I like it.
That's terrific. I'm going to have to look that up. We'll link it up in the show notes as well, which is a good opportunity to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that you can get every single episode, the entire 8 years before this one, at socialpros.com. Transcripts of every episode, links to all the resources mentioned on the episode, obviously the audio as well, socialpros.com for all of that. If you're watching us on video, don't forget that Social Pros is now available on YouTube. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and you can never miss an episode. RJ, thank you so much for being here. Congrats on the success at Pattern89. Cannot wait to see what happens next as more and more smart marketers and smart Social Pros listeners start to optimize their social with your fleet of smart robots.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks, RJ.
Adam, man, we did it.
We did.
We did an episode in 2019. We've nothing's going to stop us now, baby.
Isn't technology wonderful? So
It
glad
really
to
is.
see you here,
Yes,
and
as well.
and looking forward to 2019.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on what I hope is your very favorite show. This has been Social Pros. Take care.